So, in the time that I've known you, excuse me, at IAPA, you've been a big champion for adding sort of entertainment elements into a lot of the sessions that you've worked on, whether it's kind of adding retail and entertainment together and, really using that to bolster customer service. And I would just wonder if you could talk a little bit about that process and how that works to add those, seemingly non-related elements together and how that actually works.
That's a really good question. I guess it stems from the fact that when you go into any restaurant or store or any kind of customer service environment, people that have a tendency to be friendlier or they seem to just sort of connect with you on some level are the ones that appeal to the general public. And when you're in an environment like working at a theme park or a family entertainment center or something along those lines, there is already a heightened expectation that you are going to deliver that great customer service component. So it happens more holistically, I guess, if you are a performer, because when you're doing shows or you're in parades or you're greeting people, your job is to be a host. There is an element that's already sort of built into that. But when we talk about people in other areas, like we talk about our food and beverage people, or we talk about our staff that's working behind a cash wrap in a retail environment, they don't necessarily get that training to learn how to really connect with people on a personal level. And that's where I think the entertainment component comes in. It's basically an escalation of somebody's independent personality and a way for them to, a way for the employer to see the value of the individual person and what they can bring to the forefront. So in that regard, it winds up being entertaining because you're allowing your staff member, your cast member, to elevate themselves on a level. And sometimes it means they get to kind of grow on a personal level too. I mean, somebody learning how to juggle that's working in a toy shop, even if they don't juggle well, it can be really fun for the guests and entertaining for the guests and fun for the staff member because now you've just opened the door to a genuine conversation. Mm-hmm. So as opposed to it being a sales tactic, it becomes an act of human interaction.
Okay.
For lack of something better.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of my philosophy behind it. It's really just pulling the best out of every individual.
And do you recommend, looking at how you hire people so that they will be more apt to want to learn how to juggle or something, or is that something that's just kind of part of the culture?
Yeah, I think that's I think both, to be honest.
Okay.
I think if you have an interview process that allows an individual to really show what they're interested in and what they want to do, and to express why they have an interest in doing what they want to do with you and your organization, then you've kind of sort of jumped a little bit of a hoop there. I think sometimes we get so concerned about hiring bodies in that we overlook the fact that these are individual people and they may not be the right fit for our organization. So you spend more time and energy trying to get that person to a place where they meet your criteria, and perhaps the individual is not meeting their own personal expectations because it's not a good fit. Mm-hmm. So if you kind of take the time to develop that component, then you have the chance to be able to be more successful for your organization and for the person that's applying for the job. So I think that's a critical piece. You also need to be a bit of a detective, I think, a bit of an investigator, because not everybody interviews really well, and not everybody can show their true self when they come in. So I think really trying to find diverse ways of interviewing people that allow individuals to show the best sides of themselves is really advantageous. So whether that's you ask them to draw a picture of themselves to represent, if you do a group interview to see how they interact, if you just have basic conversation with them, to kind of find out what, and ask them, what do you like? What are you interested in? That's actually very informative. So, yeah, so I think that's probably from my standpoint, and certainly with the Shreveport Aquarium, we're having the opportunity to really kind of bust those walls out. I mean, we're looking at some really different ways of approaching how to find the right team members to join us, because we have a very small staff, so we need to get people that are completely engaged from the get-go.
Right, and you can't afford to just hire a body.
No,
right?
We can't. And I've worked within large organizations, and sometimes it's hard because you almost feel like you have to hire the people that are coming through the door because they appear to be available and accessible. But you also can wind up damaging what you're trying to achieve because you're spending all your time trying to get one or two people to be a part of the team. Yeah. As opposed to, let's say you have 6 great players who are all in and they're going to do what they need to do to get the job done, and they've got the right attitude and right spirit. And you have these other 2 folks over here that are kind of dragging everything down. Well, if you pull those 2 out of the equation, you're going to have a strong team that's probably going to do better than if you have the 8 bodies in place. So it's a strange mathematical equation that sometimes less is more.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
I totally agree with you. I'm glad that works into your whole philosophy of the entertainment piece, making sure the right people are in the right place, and culture is a big part of that as well, it sounds like. So,
well, I mean, don't you think that people have a chance to, if people really are passionate about something and they really want to partake in something, they'll put themselves out there, and they will take some risks. And the risks aren't like, it doesn't mean like, you're going to jump up on a table and start dancing in front of everybody to garner attention. It means you might be willing to share a little bit more about yourself. You might be willing to go ahead and draw a picture, or to play that game that maybe you're afraid you're not going to be successful at, because you're willing to take that chance. And I would much rather have somebody that's willing to take a chance, who maybe doesn't appear as polished or as slick on the outside, than somebody who's giving me all the right answers, and somebody who is, comes in with a perfect resume. I want real people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want real people, because that's what adds to the experience too. That's what adds depth to what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's important when you mention culture, if you've got a new person coming in and that's already established, and they make the new person feel safe in taking those risks,
absolutely.
It's so much easier to be able to pull that out. Whereas if you're trying to tell somebody, no, it's okay to take those risks, and everybody else is saying, "That's stupid, don't do that, it's stupid," that makes it much more difficult. And then you've got a culture that you don't really want, right? And then you're saying you have a culture, but the actual culture is something completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're at a place right now where we're building the culture from the ground up. So all the great things that we have learned from all the different experiences we as a team, those of us at Planet Aqua Group, all the things that we have learned, we're bringing together the good stuff. The things that we have learned that maybe have not been so positive, we're using that as well, but we're using that to inform ourselves of things that we don't want to do, and practices we don't want to put into place, and pitfalls that sometimes happen just as part of the normal course of things. We're really trying to avoid that. It doesn't mean we won't make mistakes, but as we like to say, failure is an opportunity to get up and try again. So,
that's right.
Yay!
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Exactly. And that's funny. That made me think of Apollo 13 and that famous, failure is not an option. But I think since we're not going to the moon, failure can be an option, right?
Yeah.
You just look at it differently, right?
Well, I think people sometimes get scared because they don't. They're not willing to take that risk. They're not willing to try something that's really different. And we've been talking to a lot of unique organizations to inform us about how to create the best possible attraction we can for everybody. And we're talking inclusively. So we've been talking to Louisiana Association of the Blind. We've been talking to Deaf Action Center. We've been talking to an organization out here called Holy Angels, which has residents who are developmentally and physically challenged. We're talking to teachers, we're talking to parents, we're talking to students, tweens and teens, different socioeconomic groups, just to get input about, what are people's expectations? And we really believe that when anyone walks through our door, we want them to see a microcosm of what the Shreveport and greater area looks like, the community. We want them to feel safe.
Sure.
And we can't have our guests feel safe unless our team members feel safe and happy and engaged in what we're doing. So it's very foundational, very basic when you peel it back, but I think sometimes it gets lost with the clutter of trying to just operate.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Thanks for watching this episode of Leader Tips Q&A. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can be notified when new episodes come out. If you have a question for me, or if you'd have a question that you'd like to see addressed on a future episode, go ahead and put it in the comments. Thanks for watching.